Okay, so admittedly, the script for this video was drafted when I watched this movie when I was high, and then I started writing this like immediately afterwards. So we'll see if this makes any sense in the final cut. It probably won't, but I don't really care. I cannot be fucked to proofread anything.
Sorry man, we just want fun. Off the walls, got the gall, acting like we're funny. Hit the floor, out the door, shoot till it's over. Small town, big plans, welcome to October.
Today's episode of Lazy Bedhead was brought to you by GoBrunch. More on them later.
Now, usually when I watch bad movies, I torture my friends and I make a podcast. And that's kind of what this still is, albeit it's not with my IRL friend Morgan, because I love her too much. Instead, this is a collaborative video effort with my buddy Phineas. You know, the guy that I throw around in every video. I mean, if I'm gonna watch slop, I might as well make someone watch it with me that actually has a film degree and get them fucking famous. So if you're new here, I'm sure that introduction was jarring and kind of threatening, but fear not, because I am always like this. But hi, I'm a lazy bedhead, and this is a channel on YouTube.com where I talk about whatever I want. People pay me money, people follow me on platform, and today we are talking about bad movie. Not in a so bad it's good kind of way either, they're just bad. So, since I have to turn everything into a long-ass video essay because I'm pretentious and annoying, I did want to talk about something semi-related to the movie in question for like 10 minutes before we actually talk about the movie. Let's talk about books in a video that's supposed to be about movies. But in all seriousness, a lot of movies that we see in entertainment usually are inspired by or are direct adaptations of books. Not all books are meant to be the potential blueprints for movies, however. This is because, for a lot of people, reading gives an audience an opportunity to take in for themselves what the author describes in their plots and kind of create their own interpretations as they read. I'll give you an example. So back in the day, I was a big fan of the Percy Jackson series, and although there are like artistic interpretations of the official book characters, when you read the books just as is without these reference drawings, you can kind of form your own interpretation of what these characters look like, what their environment is, what the supporting cast of characters look like. All of that stuff can be your own interpretation as you read, but when you finalize that visual appeal of books into a movie, you're creating a permanent production of these characters and a permanent interpretation of who these characters are. Like, for instance, my interpretation of Annabeth looked more like Ellie from The Last of Us, but the Percy Jackson movie made her look like a glamour filter Jennifer Moseley. The point is, a movie's interpretation of a book is just the interpretation of a single director, and usually doesn't represent the actual book itself. And this is a problem that especially comes up with books that are supposed to take on a dystopia, because a lot of dystopias are Hollywood-fied to shit, unless you're really given free reign. And even then, movie executives love it when their main leads at least look conventionally attractive. Most dystopias just look so clean, especially when you involve young teen or new-aged adult characters. Hollywood has an issue with roughing up characters through the traumatic worlds that they put them through. They are allergic to making characters experience physical and visually displeasing mental health problems, despite placing them in the setting of the literal end of the world. But maybe this isn't a problem with Hollywood, and more so an issue with the young adult book genre and their dystopian world. When you write a book that is meant for teens or young adults, the intention of these writings is to engage a new-aged adult reader in that transitional period from reading the Magic Treehouse books to, I don't know, like Twilight. I don't know, that's what all the girls in like my 4th grade class were reading at the time. But you get what I'm saying. You're going from like these easy breezy 10 chapters maximum to like these 30 30-chapter time consumers. I'm talking about the books that are thicker than a snicker, and the words are looking awfully sophisticated. And that's a big word for lazy. A lot of the demographic of young adult novels are branching out of their reading comprehension and capacity to absorb knowledge when they engage in written art rather than visual art. And so when you're trying to describe something as socially and politically complex and extensive as a dystopian world, a lot of authors don't engage with their audience and kind of just treats them like they're dumb. In fact, they go super surface level because the audience are just young, dumb 16 to 22-year-olds, just barely starting to learn how to take the time to read. They barely just joined the adult world, so we don't need these books to be super in-depth and complicated. We need to dumb it down to at least the simple bare minimum. That's why a lot of young adult dystopian books kind of all read the exact same and check off all of the boxes of the typical themes and common world-building similarities. Examples of these stereotypes would include things such as books being banned or rare, segregated communities, oppressive governments that take advantage of the people, the rebel group that tries to invoke some sort of uprising, all of the characters being above the age of 16 except for the main character's singular preteen sibling or cousin, and if it's a technological dystopia, then aliens exist or something. I think it had to have been like sometime after Twilight, when the supernatural romance was kind of going out of style, is when we started seeing more and more of these surface level, similar feeling movies, or sometimes shows, that would capitalize off of the idea of putting young people through traumatic experiences while still looking like attractive and badass. And even though I'm speaking really sarcastically about it, I don't think that the young adult dystopian plot is bad by any means. I just think that the industry is like so saturated now that it's hard to want to engage with it, especially since they all share the same tropes, that it just kind of feels like you're watching the Hunger Games over and over and over again. Shockingly though, despite this movie genre being popularized and dominated by the Hunger Games or Dune with Timothy Chalamet, there was a book that was actually published before Twilight that has now gotten a movie, despite it being part of the book zeitgeist for nearly 2 decades. And that series is Uglies by Scott Westerfield. Uglies is a young adult novel published January 1st, 2005, authored by Scott Westerfield. Scott here is actually pretty well versed in playing with different hypothetical socioeconomic societies, as he actually has a bachelor's degree in philosophy. So really, it would only make sense that both of his most popular series, both Uglies and the Leviathan series, would tackle this dystopian setting either through altered history or extreme political rhetoric that creates a divided society. And to be fair, it feels very much like Uglies was his first attempt at tackling these subjects and these themes, because Leviathan and its following books sounds way more intriguing and compelling than the setting or the plot that Uglies has. Uglies is essentially about a world divided between 2 people groups: ugly people and pretty people, referred to, respectively, as the Uglies and the Pretties. This dystopian world uses plastic surgeries to solve all socio-political conflicts to create the perfect society where everyone is happy and no one suffers under an oppressive regime that, in reality, does not have the people's best interest in mind. Instead, the founders of this societal structure sell the idea of a desired life that not everyone wants, unless of course it's forced on you. The idea for this world is essentially to create this social commentary on the idea of what being perfect is. It challenges the idea of conventional attractiveness versus true inner beauty. Which is better? The book does take the side of inner beauty, but there is a nuance there that doesn't make either option like sound good or bad. I mean, sure, you're supposed to get the idea that the pretty society is being sold as better when it's actually not, but When the pretties desire their lives regardless and are objectively happier because of it, and also the governing bodies of this world do in fact take care of its people, then it sort of creates the illusion of choice on where to stand on it morally. At the same time though, the plot really exaggerates and makes clear that the consequences of trying to reach a perfect society that just kind of all looks the same and shares the same beauty standard is probably not a good thing. For one, the main form of control that these surgeries serve is to keep everyone as a mindless, dumb, hot bimbo. And they do this by lobotomizing people so they cannot think for themselves. They lose all memory they had about being an ugly, which means that their self-esteem is incredibly high, meanwhile they're completely hooked on phonics. And the worst part is, without knowing the main purpose of the surgeries is to turn everyone into a hot zombie, this is being sold as the desirable path for the future of humanity. The other unforeseen consequence is when the surgeries are doubled up on or maxed out to the extreme. When you get additional surgeries or more lobotomies, what you end up as is this uncanny valley mindless drone. If I were to describe like what the specials are supposed to look like, think the Bogdanov twins. A beautiful nightmare.
Isolde. Bumpy.
Book like leans more into that creepy, uncanny valley than this idea of the pretties world being this evil government solution to solve world conflict by turning everyone into a Bogdanov. These brainless Chadchins, like, I can see how that could be incredibly dystopian. I mean, it's definitely different, but I think there are ways you can make it work. I mean, admittedly, the pitch sounds kind of silly because all you really did is divide this world by grouping ugly people and pretty people. Like, the concept of that is like something like a first grader would write. But like, if you don't think about the eugenics for a second, maybe this could be a good idea. And then they made a movie. And the movie made every wrong decision you could possibly make ever. But I'll let Phineas talk about the movie's development and production because he's the one with a film degree. I'm the one who dropped out of college.
Hey howdy hey, I'm the one and only Phineas, and Uglies is an ugly movie. He said it! But before you ask if I'm the right guy to discuss Uglies, the answer is yes, because my degree is literally about staring into a movie and breaking its will to live.
Every day I wake up and I hope you're dead!
And today, I want to expand on two ideas. Briefly in this section, because I'm 95% sure the podcast episode that will come out will be integrated into this video, and cover the other parts. So let's talk about what we shall we? So on a technical level, Uglies is a certified bad movie. It's hard to break down the super specifics, but any given shot I look at reeks of Netflix cheapness. It's super apparent from the lighting that on so many of these shots, coupled with its cinematography being as basic as it can possibly get. A lot of films are this way, sure, but the amount of weird cuts that Uglies makes in an effort to do nothing but shot reverse shot makes it a very visually dull film. And if you pay attention to so many of these films' backgrounds, I don't think they work either. This is a dystopian world in the future, but so many of the backgrounds look like we were filming it in the woods. Like, nothing about this world or anything, just the woods. The shots feel like the actor is just playing around in the woods like you would in a home movie. But finally, within this film's production, I want to take a look at the writing, and every character lacks a distinct voice. The thing when you're writing characters is it's so important to make them sound differently. So for example, I say things that sound differently as words than what Lazy would say for words when we're writing each other's dialogue, which we totally don't do. The thing with Uglies is that every single one of these characters just speaks in generic dystopian teen speak.
During the time of the Rusties, dependence on fossil fuel decimated the earth, poisoning our air, soil, and our water supply, which resulted in division, conflict, and their ultimate collapse.
And it's a bad bad. It's a mark of bad writing. The weirdest revelation that I had while watching Uglies is that Dan Spilo worked on it. And for those of you who don't know who he is, which it's gonna be probably a lot of you, let's go on a little side mission because I figured this would be fun. So, have you guys ever watched the show Survivor? You can't respond to me. I don't know why you said words there. You probably have at some point watched the show, but the bigger question is, have you watched the show's 39th season? The 39th season of Survivor is called Island of the Idols, and it's notable for being the only season out of Survivor's 48 seasons that someone got kicked off the show for bad behavior, and this is Dan Spilo. Dan Spilo's tenure on Survivor consisted of him getting called out on day 2 for uncomfortably touching another contestant on the show, and after saying he'd improve and it was put into the background and not shown, episode 8 sees things change. In episode 8, the two tribes became one and merged, and also 4 of the women in this merged tribe discussed with each other Dan's behaviors and how it had made them uncomfortable. Then, that same week, at Tribal Council, the discussion about Dan was had, and instead of doing the obvious decision, throw Dan off the show, some of the people who were victimized by him decided to hide behind him to get further ahead in this game for $1 million, which led to one of his main victims, the one from episode 2, Kelly Kim, getting voted off. The merge continues and Dan remains in the game, and you're just watching these people who deserve karma not get it until the final 6, where Dan Spilo is inappropriate to a production crew member and gets ejected from the show. So why did I talk about Survivor? Why am I using my little feature to talk about a show that's not fully relevant seeming? Well, so the craziest thing when I watched Uglies is that Dan Spilo was a producer on this film, but even more so, he's Joey King's manager. So if Uglies couldn't be any worse, one of its producers is, by this definition, someone who lost out on $1 million because he couldn't stop sexually harassing the woman who surrounded him. That's bad. Back to you, Lazy.
So, what the fuck is this movie? Like, aside from Joey King calling yourself ugly for pity sympathy, like, seriously, what are we even talking about? What exactly is watching this movie like? What's the experience? How are we feeling about it? Well, after watching the whole thing, I still think something like The Host is, like, objectively worse in comparison, but it's still rather silly and dumb.
Might want to see yourself.
God bless you.
Our first scene of the movie already shoots itself in the foot because although it's supposed to set up the plot of this dystopian world and the main theme of its universe, the way they present that is just so dumb.
Mirror, make me pretty.
Sure, Tally. This is Morpha version 732.
This is Tally Youngblood, which, as a last name for like a young adult novel, pretty typical last name, pretty like on the nose or whatever. Although I think that Youngblood is like, isn't that like 1920s jazz slang or something like that? I don't know if it's cultural appropriation or not to be giving a white girl jazz slang from the 20s. So when taking reference to the books, Tally is the only person that even has a last name. I mean, David has both of his parents and has like a familial lineage, but they don't have last names. Tally is like the only character that has a last name. I don't know, maybe this is just main character syndrome and they're the only one whose family line matters. And there is no explanation for this, by the way. According to the author himself on his website, he basically just kinda says that Tally was given the name Youngblood for one specific sequence in the Pretties book. Uglies takes place 300 years in the future. Names probably won't be the same as now. So I needed something that's not a current name, but that doesn't make your brain fritz when you read it. So I chose a regular word in English. Tally in itself doesn't mean anything, but her last name has a lot of associations. Youngblood is sort of halfway between Young Turk, a political upstart, and Fresh Blood, a newcomer. You can tell Tally is gonna disrupt the system. In fact, the whole thing would be a bit too obvious, except the last names don't get used very often in the Uglies world. world. Usually people only say Tally's last name when she's in trouble, in that parental way, as in, get back in this house, Scott David Westerfield, which makes it especially appropriate. I knew I'd chosen the right last name for Tally and Pretties when the savages who think that she's a renegade god fallen from the sky started calling her Young Blood. It just fit. Scott, what are you talking about? Do you mean to tell me that Tally gets the last name Young Blood because you wrote a scene in Pretties where a bunch of savages, whatever that's supposed to mean in this world, it literally could mean anything, but you had a bunch of savage people mistake Tally as a fallen god, and they just start calling her a Young Blood, hence her last name that she had before this scene, but it's given new meaning now, even though in the context of the story, this random last name doesn't make any sense without this sequence happening. Scott! That is stupid. Why would you do this? Now, Tally does have parents with the last name of Young Blood, but again, Tally and her family seem to be the only people who have a last name. I don't know, maybe if I read Young Bloods, there's probably a better explanation, but I don't have the wherewithal to care right now. We're talking about the movies, not the books. I don't know how to read. So Tally asks the magic mirror on the wall to make her the prettiest girl of them all. And the mirror just kind of slaps a filter on her face and calls it a day. A lot of the letterbox reviews for this movie call this the TikTok glamour filter movie. And although I feel like there's probably a lot more going into the CGI than just like TikTok technology, it's pretty uncanny. But here's the issue that I have with this movie and the universe it's trying to build. And it's that I don't know what's considered ugly in this universe. I don't know what the beauty standard is for this world to be considered a pretty, because the most that happens to like beautify Joey King is putting a filter over her face that gives her golden eyes and bright white skin. Like, that's it. Otherwise, she looks like no different. Even when she gets the pre-surgery by the end of the movie, which, spoiler alert, I guess, they just give her a neutral makeup look and like hair extensions from a mall vendor. That's all she does. Paris at least looks totally different after his surgery, so I don't know what the fuck is going on here. Maybe you're thinking that that's supposed to be the point, right? It's a glaring flaw of the universe that in reality, what these people think is ugly is actually not. And I mean, I would agree with you if it wasn't for the fact that Joey King objectively looks gorgeous. Like, aside from always looking like a middle schooler, which, listen, that's not an insult because I look like a 14-year-old boy. Joey King isn't a hideous person. In fact, none of these actors are. Oh, especially Shay's actress, like as an ugly and a pretty? I absolutely would. Are you kidding me? David is supposed to be a smoky, which are uglies that reject surgeries and live on the outside, roughed up from the destroyed world that they lived in. But like, my man just looked like he walked off of a runway. The best way I can describe this, and this might sound like really niche and super weird, and you might not relate to it at all, but this is the only equivalent that I can think of, right? This is like if a trans woman who is, born male, transitions to female, goes to get facial feminization surgery, but as a assigned male at birth, they already have like such feminine features that like the doctor doesn't even really need to do anything. Just slap them on with like a new hair and a nice set of tits. Now, I'm not saying that Hollywood has to cast people for these roles on the basis that they have to be ugly looking. I think if that was their baseline in casting, that'd sort of be like validating the surgeries instead of critiquing them. However, the movie is so scared of giving these characters like any flaws. Not to mention, in the books, uglies are separated from their pretty parents at the age of 12 and then filled with so much insecurity and self-hatred that they will want the surgery by default. So my question is like, why 12 years old? So is 12 years old like the starting date to when a person becomes an ugly because that's the early stages of puberty? Because if that's the case, why is 16 the determined age when the surgery is scheduled? Because for a lot of people, puberty doesn't stop at 16 or like start at 12. You can't let kids get gender affirming surgeries. That'll permanently alter their life. But if you make them hot though, the uglies and the pretties are divided between two sections. The uglies live in Uglyville and live in these dormitories where they teach themselves, they live by themselves, and honestly, they're kind of a self-functioning society. Like, aside from the fact that these kids like aren't allowed to read books. There's like no adults here at all making sure that no one gets in trouble or like sneaks out or anything. The most that they get for surveillance are like these giant ships that circle around New Pretty Town, but like other than that, they're really just kind of left to their own devices. Hell, when Tally and Shay go to the location to meet David and go to the smoke, there's not really any security that stops them from doing this. Like, people can just like leave whenever they want, and it doesn't really seem like anyone really gives a shit. Unless, of course, they trespass into New Pretty Town, in which case they're chasing you to the ends of the fucking earth. You know, priorities. Meanwhile, in New Pretty Town, everyone parties every day. They're always dressed in extravagant clothes. Fireworks are set off at all times, and they're always fucking each other in public. All I'm saying is that it seems like when you're an ugly, you have more of self-responsibility to follow the rules and govern and make sure that no one goes against Laverne Cox. But when you're pretty, you can just fuck right in the middle of the street. Oh, side note, by the way, having a black trans actress casted as a surgeon that makes everyone get this perfection surgery to defeat discrimination, that's a choice, especially since this black trans woman is performing surgeries on minors. I'm sorry, was this movie written by dumb Republicans that are suffering with transgender conspiracy brain rot? Like, did no one think that casting a black trans woman as a eugenics doctor was probably sending a certain message to validate a certain group of morons? Laverne, look, I love you, but please get a new agent. Cause what the fuck was that? Look, this man is out to sabotage you. I don't know why. He just is. Anyways, the pretties are so bimbofied that you can break one over your knee and fucking dominate. Not to mention just how this movie tries to differentiate Uglyville and New Pretty Town. It's so surface level that it physically hurts me. Uglyville is gray, dark, it's an industrial world where everyone lives in a shipping container. New Pretty Town is literally just New York on New Year's Eve every single day. And that's it. The distinction is literally beige moms versus Party City. Rest in peace, Party City, you will be missed. It just feels so juvenile. Like, even if it does lobotomize you, at least you get to have, like, perfect teeth forever, instead of having to take literal toothbrush pills every day. This is supposed to be your futuristic technology, and all it is a glorified Tic Tac. So Tally is contacted by someone named Nose to meet her at the top as she scales this massive building. Her childhood friend, Paris, is called Nose because the Uglies refer to each other as nicknames that highlight flaws that they have. So for Tally, Nose decided to call her Squint because, according to the books, Tally has frizzy brown hair, beady hazel eyes that are too close together, a patchy complexion, thin lips, a flat nose, and she hates the right side of her face. Now, this description does describe at least some facial flaws that Tally is projected to believe make her ugly, and maybe it does. I mean, I personally don't see anything wrong with having, like, a thin pair of lips or a patchy complexion or beady eyes that give her the nickname Squint. Shit. Like, I see the vision. I understand what visually they're trying to create and represent. But, like, guys, can you please look at this picture of Joey King and tell me if she looks like a squint? Like, does this woman not have the biggest eyes in the known universe? So Paris and Tally spy into the pretties party with their Google glasses and talk about how it's Paris's birthday tomorrow, which means he'll be 16 and is getting yassified. We see these flashbacks of Tally and Paris forming a bond and even creating a blood pact to stay best friends forever. It's implied here that Paris and Tally do at least like each other, but in the book it's not like that at all. I feel like this like crush thing was kind of shoehorned into the movie to kind of create like a Team Paris versus Team David, spoiler alert, sort of dynamic here where the Uglies fan base will have to be like, no, I'm Team Paris, no, I'm Team David. It's stupid kid, stop it. And this is just so weird because, like, even in the context of the story, Uglies aren't prevented from dating each other or anything. I mean, sure, they're not allowed to, but, like, I don't think that's ever, like, a strict rule. I don't know why I reference the book as much as I am, because I'm trying to go by the logic of the movie, but the movie also gives me absolutely nothing to work with. The day of Paris's surgery finally arrives, and they are all called into an assembly with the head doctor and researcher of the pretty surgery, Dr. Cable. Okay, so do they have to have this assembly, like, on everyone's birthday? Do they have to listen to this same fucking speech, like, every day? Because I'm pretty sure there's enough people that every single day would be someone's birthday, so is this like a daily occurrence? I feel like that's extremely counterproductive and also a complete waste of everyone's fucking time. So Paris leaves for surgery and New Pretty Town, and Tally is left behind to wait a few more months for her 16th birthday. In the meantime, she tries to reach out to Paris by contacting him, but the Pretties and the Uglies have a strict no contact between them. Man, he's not answering. Why is he not talking to me? I hope he hasn't, like, forgotten about me or something. It's not like there's like a no contact order or anything. Tally breaks into New Pretty Town to find Paris. And listen, I am not anti-plastic surgery or like anti-self-indulgence or like anti-utopian society where the government actually takes care of its people and all their needs. In fact, I would actually love more of that because things are not looking good right now. But, you know, as an introvert, New Pretty Town doesn't seem like the place that I would want to live in anyways. Like, aside from the fact that these people just party all day long and fireworks are set off at all hours of the night, it just doesn't seem like there's a whole lot going on. Like, is this really all they do? Do they not go on cruises or have jobs or can just create real deep friendships? Do they not start cults? That's what I want to know. Do they do anything else other than like look hot and do coke all the time? Of course, since this is a technological dystopia, we have to have weird dystopian technology, such as this mask that puts your clothes on for you. I know I already talked about this, but like, the toothbrush pill? What is even that? Hoverboards are also a thing in this, so I guess that's cool. Oh, and did I mention that the reason why the world is like divided and the pretty people are like bubbled off is because the world used up all of its natural resources, so it decided to use a plant as a sort of unlimited energy, which then fuels their societies today, but also the government didn't want people to like think freely and be solely dependent on them, so they created the procedure to lobotomize everyone.
Rethinking is a cancer, Tally. Leave people to choose for themselves, and they'll destroy the world. They nearly did. Freeing them of choice saved them.
So this is why I'm so confused. These are two central, like, building structures for this dystopian world. The plants being, like, a powerful yet deadly source of energy that everyone is super reliant on, and the plastic surgery lobotomy. But the problem is, there is nothing that connects these two at all. They're just two separate things that just so happen to be happening at the same time in this world. Like, they try to explain why they're related at the beginning of the movie, but it's not like the surgeries, like, contribute to or solve the fact that these plants are like super deadly and an overabundance of a source of power. And look, the over-reliance of fossil fuels is a real issue that reflects our real world. But what doesn't make any sense is that if this world has already lived through and bore witness to the resources being used up and ran out, why would they then turn to a resource that is equally easy to destroy? They say that the reason why is because of its unlimited energy supply, but all you have to do to get rid of these things is literally burn them to the ground. So why would humanity rely on this sole plant as a source of unlimited energy that is so easy to destroy? Like, the sun is an infinite resource of solar power and is not easy to burn with a flamethrower. Why is no one trying to use a different form of infinite resource that is not so easily destroyed by literal fire? Like, did no one think of using like solar power, turbines, hydropower. I don't know about y'all, but this is looking like a hypothetical Trump 2.0 future, and considering that the dipshit doesn't even believe in solar energy, I am afraid. Anyways, so Tally does find Paris, who doesn't remember her at all, really. I mean, he does, but also kind of like doesn't, because he doesn't remember her nickname or the fact that they had like a blood pact, and honestly, he's just kind of there to party and vibe. Tally is caught and makes a grand escape with a bungee jumping jacket, the logic of which I'm not even gonna try and get into because I already like went on 2 random rants about the fucking stupid toothpaste pill. But then Tally is saved by this character, Shay. Shay is the antithesis of Tally. Tally wants the surgeries, she wants to live in New Pretty Town. Meanwhile, Shay wants to go to the Smoke. The Smoke is a rebel group of uglies that decided to skip out on the surgeries and live off the land by relying on trading and zero technology. So they're efficient in each other rather than the technological advancements of New Pretty Town. Maybe if the book like emphasized that the Smokies are more energy efficient, I can see why this society would seem like more desirable. Like if they created more than just like a trading system, maybe they do like create like a hydropower or solar energy source or something. But remember, surgeries aren't just the only issue in this world, it's the lack of resources. But all the Smokies really solve is the lack of free will. When it comes to how people are like gonna function societally, their solution is just like to trade, which can only really do so much. Also, the Smokies are hypocrites because some of the recruits rely on technology like hoverboards and helicopters. Anyways, so Shay and Tally get really close and they both discover that they have the same birthday. So they're gonna get the surgeries on the same day. But Shay doesn't want the surgeries. She wants to live with the Smoke, and she wants Tally to come with her.
Everyone is exactly who they're born to be. They're free. I don't want to be free, I want to be pretty.
In any other circumstance, and just, you know, based on the acting, this very much feels like they were setting up a romance between Tally and Shay, but this book was also made in the homophobic year of 2005, so that didn't happen. Tally's birthday finally comes, and she waits around for her surgery to be scheduled, but she never gets called. Instead, she's called upon by Dr. Cable herself to discuss a secret mission to take out the Smoke. Basically, Dr. Cable knows that the Uglies are going to the Smoke, but doesn't know where that is. But she knows that Shay left and that Tally and Shay were close friends, so she recruits her to find the Smoke because Dr. Cable believes that they have some sort of super weapon that is meant to wipe out humanity. Tally is given a choice: either find Shay and lead Dr. Cable to the Smoke, or never get her surgery and remain in Uglyville forever. And yet, despite how badly Tally wanted this surgery and how much it meant to her to get this surgery, she says no.
I wish I could help. I don't know where she is.
Like, look, I would understand if she just said no because she doesn't believe that the Smoke even exists.
We believe she's been brainwashed by a man named David.
Because the Smoke doesn't exist.
You don't know what you're talking about, Dex. David took them, personally. The David? I heard he's dangerous. He's a revolutionary.
Yeah, and he's 7 feet tall and walks on water.
Shut up, Dex.
I mean, that would make way more sense, especially since, like, in the last scene when Tally and Shay try to go meet up with David to prove that the Smoke is real, he doesn't even show up. Like, Tally is just under the assumption that, like, the Smoke is a myth and doesn't actually exist. But also, she doesn't say that for some reason. All she says is that she can't help and she doesn't know anything, which, like, I mean, yeah, I guess she doesn't because she never met David and she couldn't confirm whether any of this was true. So it's not like she's wrong, it's just that she's not willing to try.
You're gonna send me back to the dorms?
Only until you can help. Just try to remember.
And you know, since this was something that she wanted her whole life, this should be a deal breaker at the very least, but she still doesn't give in until Paris breaks in and convinces her to just help out the doctor and get her surgery already.
Squint, we spent every day for 4 years dreaming of what it would be like in the city. Come on, Squint, what are you gonna do? Refuse to help, not get the surgery? You'll be a freak, a total outcast.
You know, that's really convenient, considering that Paris completely forgot their promise months ago. I certainly wonder what made him suddenly remember her nickname, even though he completely forgot.
I so appreciate your help convincing Tally.
Ah, of course. Silly me. So, in order to find David in the smoke, what Tally has to do is ride her hoverboard over this riverbed to this abandoned roller coaster called the Rusty Ruins, and then just plummet to your death. But eventually, she finds herself in a field of white orchids, and then they're set on fire.
Can you take me higher?
Who are you?
I'm David.
Meanwhile, Paris is undergoing a secondary operation after he starts remembering who Tally was. This secondary surgery turns Paris into a special, which is a super modified pretty that can kill people. So, here's the central conflict of, like, the Tally smoke arc. Tally is working undercover as Dr. Cable's spy to find the smoke and use this little necklace here to alert the government to the location of the Smokies so that they can be captured and taken into the bimbofication surgery. But Tally is so bad at being undercover because Shay points out the necklace immediately and literally calls her on her bluff.
So you're gonna tell me about that necklace? Paris came by my room that last night. Wait, I thought you guys were just friends. Did you come here to try to bring me back? You need to leave.
So instead of telling David and the rest of the Smokies that she's trying to drag them back to Dr. Cable, she just decides not to say anything?
I'm not gonna tell them about this. It's our secret. But you have to get to know these people. Get to know the smoke. I know this is the right place for you.
You are made of stupid.
Like, the entire conflict is only being pushed because Shay isn't immediately calling out Tally's bluff and decided just to not say anything despite how oddly sus Tally is being. I can't even be like shocked or mad when the pretties do eventually show up later. Shay had every opportunity to rat her ass out and decided to literally just do nothing. In fact, most of these motherfuckers thought that she was sketchy as shit and still didn't do jack shit.
No one's ever made it alone. Nope. I just want to know how the scouts found us. Right after Miss Solo here makes her journey.
Are you kidding me, Corey?
These people want to end us, Shay! Am I the only one that's worried about all of this?
Hey guys, don't you find it a little strange that ever since Tally showed up, we've been dealing with more pretties and specials showing up to try and attack us, even though they haven't been able to find us this whole time until she showed up? I mean, yeah, I guess it's a little weird, but like, she saved Shay earlier, so I'm gonna keep her around because she won me over with the power of friendship. Now we get to see where the Smokies live, and it's just an old farming town in the middle of the woods. And it's here where this movie just starts checking off from the list of every young adult dystopian trope ever. A friendship so close it might as well be gay, but the producers are too afraid of losing Chinese profits. Random romance sparked between two characters that barely know each other. The main character's sense of reality and understanding of how her society works and her own upbringing is shattered by an elder character telling her the truth of the world. The opposing faction attacking and killing a close but important character to the protagonist, leaving them at their lowest point of the film. Again, I'm not really sure how you can expect me to feel bad for any of the Smokies when they had enough suspicion on Tally to kick her to the curb. That includes you, Shay. You knew everything pretty much from the jump and still chose to do nothing.
I vouched for you.
You don't get to fucking act like that. You knew that. Fuck you. After Dr. Cable and Giga Chad Paris rally up everyone and kill the uncooperative population, David shoves a gun in Tally's face.
Never knew that there was a way that you could live and be yourself and that would be enough, or that the cost of becoming pretty was your mind?
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention this. So the super weapon that Dr. Cable told Tally about, it was actually a reversal procedure to cure the brain damage caused by the yassified lobotomy. Plot twist was so fucking dumb that my brain must have just been trying to force itself to forget about how stupid that was. Oh yeah, the mandatory pretty surgery has also apparently killed people, which is why David's parents don't do the surgery anymore. Yet they somehow have the cure for this lobotomy. You know, despite retiring from surgery work, they somehow were able to perfect some sort of cure, even though they have never tested it before. I'm sure that's FDA approved, totally legit. So, Tally is trying to convince David that she's still needed for his rescue mission. She has experience breaking into New Pretty Town, so she says that she can help him sneak through and save everyone. They meet up with these uglies at the dorms. They stage this weird distraction where they spell "the smoke lives in the sky."
You want to be rebels? Today's your day. The smoke lives. Write it in the sky.
Yo, they set off fireworks every single night. Do you really think that they're just gonna give a shit about any of this? And they go on a James Bond stealth mission, sneak in, rescue sequence for like 5 minutes. But before they can break into the facility where the surgeries are performed, they are immediately halted by Rubberface Paris.
Come on, I know you're still in there.
Tally is trying to get him to break out of his mind control, and he almost does by being reminded of the scar on his hand. Paris is creepily touching Tally's face and hair, which is incredibly triggering for David, because, well, yeah. So he tackles Paris, and he's knocked over the building and hanging on for dear life. After rescuing David's mom and the other Smokies, they're informed that Shay was taken into surgery. How convenient that the most outspoken Smokey that really didn't want the surgery is the first to get the surgery. Very suspenseful, very mindful. They rush to find Shay, but she's already been libimbofied.
Tally, breathe.
So they tried to test this on Shay and to get her back to normal, as she was so adamant before in not getting the surgery.
But I don't want to be cured.
Ah. Well, of course not. Of course she wouldn't want the reversal. I mean, the surgery's intentions are to lobotomize a person to not want to go back because they don't remember who they were before. Like, the point of the lobotomies are meant to make someone so brain broken and silly that they're completely happy having no free will or say over what happens to their bodies. So, like, at this point, she's just hooked on that brain dead life. And you gotta oblige the wants of the true, not brain dead Shay. She didn't consent to her free will being ripped away from her or her body being modified. So you would actually be fulfilling the wishes of the real Shay when she could consent. So you have to do the reversal surgery.
We don't have time for this, okay? Why don't we just take her with us and make her take it?
No, we can't do that. We don't even know if it's safe.
She's not herself, Mom.
Honey, we are not gonna perform medical experiments on an unwilling subject.
Oh, fuck off! How the fuck are you gonna be able to test this thing if you don't just take a pretty and test it? Even though you say you don't want to go against the pretty's will, they don't have any free will. That's the whole point. Well, their answer is that Tally will get the surgery to become pretty and then will go back to the smoke and consent to getting the surgery. Now, you can see why this would be fucking stupid, because the whole point of the pretty surgery is to brainwash people so they forget what it was like to be an ugly. Meaning, by default, once Tally is a pretty, the lobotomy will make her forget that she even consented to doing this in the first place. Just give it to Shay. What are you? Jesus Christ. So yeah, that's the end of the movie. Tally becomes the pretty and she comes on screen looking literally no different. And the movie ends on a cliffhanger to tease the pretties for a later release date. Not that that's gonna happen, because this movie was such a fucking disaster. The reviews are bad, the audience thought it was ass, and yet it was the third most watched title of the year. You know, if the internet has taught me anything, it's that even complete horseshit can achieve some modicum of success through the means of morons hate watching and unironically generating hype for a franchise that no one is fucking asking for. But the most infuriating part about all of this promotional poster is for the film, but at no point does Tally rock this haircut. And let me fucking tell you something. I would have given an arm and a leg to see trans boy looking ass Joey King. But no, because America hates me and it hates you for being a pretty little gay boy.
I don't know if like Netflix is like known for making like young adult dystopian movies or anything, or this might just be their first one ever, you know?
I mean, movies necessarily, I don't think so. The whole thing for Netflix though is they've got a major like teen market, you know, where it's like they made a lot of your 13 Reasons Why, which them making 13 Reasons Why was my 13th reason.
As we have established, Netflix isn't really it has a teen demographic. They're not known for making teen dystopians, and I guess a big reason why is because let's be so for real, the teen dystopia trend is kind of dead now.
Yeah, no, it's been gone for a while. Like, it's, when you think about it, right, we think about this era where, like, the Hunger Games manifested, and the whole thing is it kind of was the driving factor in a lot of media for a lot of our generations, right? The big dystopian craze happened in the 2010s. So, like, for me, I was in, like, later elementary school.
There are so many dystopians you can try and do, and you can try, like, because there's so many ways the world could possibly fucking end. But at the same time, it's like, despite the diversity that can come out of this genre, for whatever reason, when you bring it into at least Hollywood, it's the exact copy-paste shit, and it's like, why though? Like, you're given such a diverse concepts, and you just choose to just do the same thing. Like, you just choose to do Hunger Games over and over, and it's like, for what? So for whatever reason, because I guess Netflix doesn't have a good, like, quality department or whatever, they decided to make this movie 20 years way too late.
Well, so the whole thing, when you're looking at it, right, so the way that the film industry works is that writers almost always get screwed over, because we can craft whatever story we want, and then once you sell the idea to a studio, unless you have it on your contract to protect your precious baby boy, the studio can easily just override you, be like, actually, we're gonna get Adam Sandler to write your movie. I've worked as a summer camp counselor for like 6 years. So one of the things that I wanted to teach my kids in the film class, so I got a lot of kids who are like 7 through 8 years old. They can't do like editing to save their lives. But these kids, not gonna be able to explain green screen to them, not gonna be able to explain editing. So I was like, okay, how am I gonna get the little kids to understand how film works without making them use the technology that their brains probably can't comprehend? So my solution that I had was that I made these kids, so I was like, okay guys, please group up. So I had them group up. My room was the only room that had computers at the entire summer camp, so I had them in groups, and I'm like, guys, we're gonna be writing stories today. I want you to come up with a main character who you guys love. These kids are like really young, so like a lot of the girls are like, she's really nice, she's got a lot of good friends, she's smart, she's funny, she dresses well, and a lot of the guys, similar stuff, but replace dresses well with he's cool, I guess, and stuff for like schools. So the thing that I do to these poor children, is I was like, okay, awesome, you guys really love your characters? Yeah, sweet, we're gonna be rotating computers. So guys, come up with a villain for this other group's character. So I had them rotate for like 5 times, to the point that they saw their characters that they really loved stories get butchered like 5 times over by the friends who had no idea what they were trying to build with this, and it was a really teaching film. I was like, well, in film, you guys can have this genius idea, and then Hollywood will change your idea, or like it's called working together. But it was
except for
fun.
not really.
It was fun. It seems like such a weird thing, but working with kids, it was actually like a great activity to use with them. But like, and what is there for like fashion in Uglies? Because it's like,
it's literally just like gray clothes, except for when you become a pretty, then it's like
colored hair and pronouns.
That's what happens in my world. I start off as a bedhead when I turn 12, and then the moment I turn 16, I get an operation to become blue hair and pronouns.
I think Uglies kind of went down with barely any like actual like fanfare or anything.
Oh no, like fans of the original books don't like this movie. Like, I don't think anyone really likes this movie.
Well, it's like, I didn't hear this getting like mentioned in like I follow film circles a lot, and no one was like Uglies, the event of the summer, or well, September.
No, if anything, it's just the movie they kind of like point and laugh at, because like there's been a lot of other like reviews coming out of Uglies, right? A lot of them YouTubers making their videos or whatever, and they're all just like, this is just like a movie that should have stayed in like 2010, and it's like, well, yeah, because like that's sort of the era in which the book was written, so like I don't know why it's coming out a whole decade later. It sounds insane.
I'm with you, I completely get that.
You know what it is? I think it's because Netflix really likes Joey King, because they had that kissing booth thing that happened that was like a whole like a trilogy of kissing booth movies that I guess people liked on Netflix, and they're like, wow, Joey King brings in money. Let's talk about just the concept in terms of how they decided to cast these characters. This is supposed to be a world where these people who think that they're ugly up until they're 16 years old and then they magically become pretty through a surgery. Except for every single person that they decided to cast as an ugly, like Joey King, Chase Stokes. Anybody who in this movie that's been casted as an ugly is absolutely not the ugliest person in the world.
Done with like normal human being casting, you know?
Oh, for sure. If they went with maybe normal looking people.
Well, like there's things where like certain shows, like one of the things with The Office is they try to get people who look pretty human, which I know mentioning The Office again, but like it's kind of crazy how movies like Uglies just miss the point of that, because it's like there's a lot of theater kids out there. There's a lot of people who would have who you could have worked with on this.
Like, casting matters, I think, and I didn't think that casting mattered all that much, because I'm like, well, anybody could play anything, but when it comes to this movie, there's a very specific like message they're trying to make, right?
And the most ugly person in Uglies is one of the producers.
Do you think that Joey King's like actually a bad actress or anything? Because I don't think so.
So the whole thing for me, the way I tend to view films, right? So there's a lot of people who like really break down from the rules of actors and stuff. I think the whole thing is, it's if you're a really good actor, it'll show really when you have like good direction, right? A bad director is way more important to someone's acting role than the actor themselves, right? Because they're making a lot of the shots. And I think that the Mick Jesus guy, OMG, Mick G, I think he's a bad director, like flat out for the actors, because the wooden performances in this film are across the board. So I don't necessarily fault Joey King for it, but we know for a fact that a lot of people who watch this film are going to immediately fault her for the performance. And
yeah, I don't think Joey King is necessarily a bad actress. I've seen her in other things where she's absolutely not a bad actress. Like you said, it is based on like what the director wants her to give, and McG wants everyone to give typical like dystopian teen speak. You're absolutely right. Like when you watch the movie, everyone pretty much acts the exact same.
Part of the whole thing with the unique voice, I meant I think much more about like the way characters are written, right? Like the biggest fault I think Uglies has comes down to really poor writing on the script. That makes it impossible to care about a lot of this stuff. The only thing of entertainment I found in this is the accidental sapphic of Joey King's character and Shay being probably a fun couple. I don't know.
That's like the only couple that's in this movie.
Yeah, no.
Legitimately. Any other couples they try to create, like fucking Tally and Nose, or like even Tally and David when he eventually just shows up. And I guess he's just the new love interest now. And the whole time I'm just thinking, I think that her and Shay have had a lot more chemistry between each other than any of these other fucking characters. Because if we're gonna really talk about like the dystopian world that this whole place sets up, the most that they do is just say we're gonna lobotomize people. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's great. I mean, I guess the way that
you say lobotomies are great?
No, like sometimes, Finn, when life gets really tough, I really I look at that scheduling book. I see.
Sponsored by Lovato. Big Lovato. How we can cure all your problems.
Finn,
all your wife's problems too.
That's a conspiracy. Dude, I ain't gonna give up my brain to Big Lovato.
Dude, Big Lovato changed my life. Before that, I had thoughts like, wow, life is beautiful. And then I had need meth.
That's an alternative personality, Walter White, and it just got combined into Alter White. And I kind of love that, actually. That's amazing.
No, I love this show, man. I think the bigger change that to take into account, right, is that in the world as a whole, like film reviews and stuff, most audience scores on Rotten Tomatoes are considered pretty high as far as things go, like too high for stupid. But like most of them that we wind up seeing are wind up being on the high side. And if you have something that's negative in the audience score, right, it says a lot about the film.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Like even if the audience, because really, people can like look at film critics and just think they're kind of snobby or whatever the hell and be like, they just don't know what they're just like thinking too much about movies and they just don't sit down to watch a movie and have a good time. They sit down and like tear it apart. So that's why a lot of people probably don't listen to film critics, because they're just like so contrarian about everything. But once you get to like an audience where even a collective audience is like, this was kind of garbage, you know, it kind of says something. Like, these aren't people who are being snobby. These are people who did go to a film to have a fun time, and they're just, you know, they're not having good times all around.
I think the whole thing for it is analyzing bad media. I always think it's very rare that I'm like, this is stupid, this is awful, no, to it, you know. I tend to be pretty, not easy to please, not positive, but I tend to be pretty, immune to a lot of the effects of medium, because again, the thing is, going to film school changes people, a lot. Like, you really rethink a little bit of everything on how you see movies, and kind of build up an immunity to, like, certain ways that movies present themselves.
Well, you know what they say, like, having to watch bad media just lets you further appreciate when things are actually good.
Agreed, yeah.
This is one of those movies that just feels like it should have came out during the time of The Hunger Games and Divergent and Maze Runner, and I feel like it just would have performed better, and maybe just not been released to Netflix.
I'm gonna be so real, I don't think this film would have performed better even then.
Really?
No.
Finn has no hope. He has no hope for this project at all. He has nothing going for it.
That podcast segment and the entire episode of Lazy and Friends wouldn't be possible without the help of GoBrunch. GoBrunch is a customizable online conference platform with a lot of features to create your own virtual spaces. You can create a co-working space, a classroom, or, as Finn and I have done, record a podcast. With built-in recording features, accessibility to use your camera, video and music integration, and the ability to change the background of your space to whatever you want, GoBrunch has so much creative freedom that helped me create a virtual podcasting space, so maybe I can actually make more episodes of Lazy and Friends and not just do it once every 4 months. You can also create a ton of rooms, so if you need to share work in multiple projects, you can just hop rooms, almost like you're in a virtual office. Wow, it's almost like that's the entire point. Now, GoBrunch is completely free to use, but to really get access to all of their customizable features, you can use my link in the video description to create your own virtual space today. Use code LazyBedhead at checkout for a discount. Thank you so much to GoBrunch for helping me create a virtual podcast space. And if you want to create your own virtual space for making your own podcast, click the link down below and use the code LazyBedhead at checkout to unlock all of their customizable features. So in conclusion, I'm an idiot, and an idiot shouldn't be telling you what you should and shouldn't like or watch. This is to say, if you liked this movie and the book series, that's totally fine. I'm not here to shame you. I just think you have bad taste. Uglies as a movie literally makes no sense. Besides from the plot making no sense, the characters and their relationships making no sense, Laverne Cox's casting making no sense. It just doesn't make any sense to have this movie even really exist. Look, Uglies came out when I was in the first fucking grade. It has been 20 fucking years, dude. I completely forgot that this book even existed, and was only reminded by this movie being made that no one was demanding, and was ultimately a huge waste of time for everyone involved. And look, this isn't against Scott Westerfield or Joey King or anyone who was a part of the project. I'm sure you were trying your best. I just thought that it was ass. And that's just my opinion, and I am a moron, so this is the opinion of a moron. So you don't need to take it too literally. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my buddy, the one and only Phineas, for helping me out with this one. I am so happy that after all this time of me tossing him over my shoulder or flicking him away from me, that we're finally making a video together. This also gives me the perfect opportunity to promote his YouTube channel. You should watch his videos. They're very informative. They're very good. Shout out to the $5 Dreamy patrons, the dedicated fans over on my Patreon paying me the big bucks for these dumb little rhombus things. So shout out to PalmTopDuck, WT Harley, Coloni, Tristan Storm, Shy Guy Doc, I guess, Dude Man Cool, Pandora Mask, Brandon Knapp,
Ruan, Vivi, MZTL Overlord, Coalescent Carnage, Sasha Henriksen, Winona Ramona, Kit Luna Jade, Yerba, Mushroom-Shaped Void Eyes, Draco System, Average Corn Worshipper, Snoozing Scribbles. Please play Lisa the Pointless, it's really good. Vetravacarian, Meekwood, Moomin, Red Blaze 27, Reginald Rensington, Demibird Does, Carbon IML, Alder Garaby, Fandom the Ho, Mellow Milo, John X Woodcat, Walls X Migraine, L Peace, Magnolia, Sky, the Wooing One, Bacon Pierogi, The Lorelock, Seraphim, Mew Too Late, Amber Lay, John Fannin, The Piper at Dawn, Jordan Ogle, Mamiko Megamin, Grimmy, Average Citrus User, Bob, Jellyfish Princess, Fun Stuffies, Trippy, Rudy Jazz, Rice Maddie, and Pastel UFOs.
Anyway, that's it for me. I'ma head out. But remember, kids, every dead body that is stuck on Mount Everest used to be a very motivated person. So stay lazy because it's not worth freezing to death on a giant mountain.
The end.